The old house creaked around Lily. Shadows danced in the corners of her mother's kitchen. Lily shivered. She felt cold, even though it was a warm summer evening. Her mother had been gone for a month now. The silence in the house was deafening. Lily picked up a faded photograph of her mother as a young woman. Her mother's beautiful face was etched with a sadness that Lily now understood. She opened a drawer, looking for a tablecloth. Instead, her fingers brushed against a leather-bound book. It was her mother's journal. Lily had never seen it before. She hesitated, then opened it slowly. The pages were filled with elegant handwriting and strange symbols. Lily felt a chill run down her spine. What was her mother hiding? As she flipped through the journal, a name leaped out at her. Ravenbrook. It was the name of their hometown, the town her mother had left years ago, vowing never to return. Lily's heart pounded. She had always felt drawn to Ravenbrook, a strange pull towards the unknown. Now, she knew why. Lily read on, her eyes widening with each word. Her mother wrote of a darkness that haunted their family, a secret passed down through generations. It spoke of a curse, a gathering point, and a terrifying truth hidden in the heart of Ravenbrook. Lily's breath caught in her throat. This was more than just a journal. It was a map to a past she never knew existed, a past that was now calling to her. The town square of Ravenbrook was bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. The sun cast long shadows, painting the cobblestones with a warm amber hue. The air was filled with the soft murmur of townsfolk winding down their day, a sense of calm and nostalgia permeating the atmosphere. Lily wandered through the quaint streets, her mother's journal clutched tightly in her hand. Each step she took echoed with memories, the journal a tangible link to her past. She could almost hear her mother's voice, guiding her through the familiar yet distant paths. Everything felt eerily familiar, as if she had been here before, in another life. The buildings, the smells, the sounds, they all whispered secrets of a time long gone. It was as if the town itself remembered her, welcoming her back with open arms. She stopped at a small cafe, its windows glowing invitingly. The soft light spilling out onto the street seemed to beckon her inside, promising warmth and, perhaps, answers. The cafe had always been a place of comfort, a sanctuary from the world outside. As she pushed open the door, a familiar voice called her name. The sound was like a key turning in a lock, unlocking a flood of emotions she had kept buried for years. "Lily, is that really you?" The voice was filled with a mix of disbelief and joy, a voice she had not heard in what felt like a lifetime. Lily turned and her heart leaped. It was Tom, her childhood best friend, his eyes wide with surprise. The years had changed him, but the essence of the boy she once knew was still there, hidden beneath the surface. They hadn't seen each other in years, not since Lily and her mother had left Ravenbrook. The memories came rushing back, lazy summer days spent exploring the woods, whispered secrets under the starlit sky, and the unspoken bond that had always connected them. Memories flooded back, lazy summer days spent exploring the woods, whispered secrets under the starlit sky. They had been inseparable, partners in every adventure, their imaginations turning the mundane into the magical. Tom had been her confidant, her partner in adventure. Together, they had faced the world with wide-eyed wonder, believing that anything was possible. "I can't believe it's you," Tom said, pulling her into a hug. The embrace was warm and familiar, a reminder of the bond they had shared. It felt like coming home. "You haven't aged a day," he said, his voice tinged with awe. Lily laughed, the sound light and carefree, but inside she felt a tremor of unease. Lily laughed, but inside she felt a tremor of unease. The years had not been as kind to her as they appeared on the surface. She carried the weight of secrets and unanswered questions. Tom looked older, wearier than his years. Life had etched lines of worry and experience on his face, a stark contrast to the carefree boy she remembered. "What are you doing here, Lily?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. "Your mother never brought you back to Ravenbrook." The statement was simple, but it carried the weight of years of absence and mystery. Lily hesitated. She couldn't tell him the truth, not yet, not until she understood it herself. The journal in her hand felt heavier, a burden she was not yet ready to share. I just felt drawn to come back," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The words were true, but they were only part of the story. "There are things I need to find out." Her voice gained strength as she spoke, determination replacing hesitation. She was here for answers, and she would not leave without them. Tom studied her for a moment, his gaze intense. He seemed to be searching for something in her eyes, something that would explain her sudden return. "This town is full of shadows, Lily," he said softly. The words were a warning, a reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of Ravenbrook. Some things are best left buried. His voice was tinged with a sadness that spoke of personal experience, of secrets that had cost him dearly. His words sent a shiver down Lily's spine. The air seemed to grow colder, the shadows deeper. She knew that uncovering the truth would not be easy. He knew something, she could feel it. There was a tension in his voice, a hint of fear that he was trying to hide. She was one step closer to unraveling the mysteries of her family's past, but at what cost? The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty. The shadows of Ravenbrook were closing in, and Lily was already caught in their web. She could feel their grip tightening, but she was determined to break free and uncover the truth, no matter what it took. Lily stood outside the imposing Victorian house that had once belonged to her grandparents. The house, with its towering spires and intricate woodwork, seemed to loom over her, casting long shadows in the fading light of the evening. It had stood empty since their deaths, shrouded in an eerie silence. The windows, once filled with light and laughter, were now dark and foreboding, like eyes that had seen too much. She had persuaded Tom to come with her, promising to explain everything later. He had been reluctant, but his concern for her had won out in the end. Now as they stood on the creaking porch, she felt a pang of guilt for dragging him into this. The wood groaned under their weight, as if protesting their intrusion. The air inside the house was thick with dust and the musty smell of decay. Every step they took stirred up clouds of dust, making it hard to breathe. Lily made her way up the narrow staircase, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. The stairs creaked ominously, and she half expected them to give way beneath her. The attic door was locked, but the old wood splintered easily under Tom's forceful push. The sound of the door breaking echoed through the house, sending a shiver down Lily's spine. The attic was dark and cavernous, filled with forgotten relics of the past. Old trunks covered in dust lined the walls, and the faint smell of mothballs lingered in the air. Cobwebs clung to Lily's face as she moved through the labyrinth of old furniture and discarded toys. She brushed them away, her heart pounding in her chest. She ran her fingers over a dusty rocking horse, its once bright paint faded and peeling. It was a relic from her mother's childhood, a connection to a past she barely remembered. The air grew heavy, filled with a sense of unseen eyes watching their every move. It was as if the house itself was alive, aware of their presence. "I don't like this, Lily," Tom whispered, his voice tight with unease. His eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of danger. Lily's hand brushed against something cold and metallic, hidden beneath a pile of moth-eaten blankets. She hesitated for a moment, then reached down to uncover it. She pulled it out, her heart pounding in her chest. It was heavier than she expected, and she could feel the weight of its history in her hands. It was a small silver locket, its surface tarnished with age. The intricate design on the front was barely visible through the layers of grime. As she pried it open, a gasp escaped her lips. Inside she found something that took her breath away. Inside the locket were two tiny portraits. They were so detailed, it was as if the people inside were staring back at her. One was of a young woman with familiar emerald green eyes, Lily's mother. The resemblance was uncanny, and it sent a chill down her spine. The other was of a man she had never seen before, his face handsome and proud, but with a hint of darkness lurking in his eyes. There was something unsettling about his gaze. This was the man from her mother's nightmares, the man she had been warned about in the journal. Lily's blood ran cold. She could almost hear her mother's voice warning her to stay away. She had found him, but her discovery only deepened the mystery. What had her mother been so afraid of? What secrets had she taken to her grave? Who was this man, and what was his connection to the curse that haunted her family? The questions swirled in her mind, each one more troubling than the last. She knew she had to find out the truth, no matter the cost. The forest pressed close, a tangle of gnarled branches and whispering leaves. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, a living, breathing entity that seemed to watch their every move. Lily and Tom followed a barely there path, their footsteps muffled by a carpet of decaying leaves. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, the path winding deeper into the heart of the forest. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something ancient and unknowable. Mist rose from the ground, curling around their ankles like ghostly fingers, adding to the sense of otherworldliness. This was the heart of Ravenbrook, the place where secrets took root and shadows held sway. Every tree, every rock seemed to whisper tales of the past, stories long forgotten, but not entirely erased. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Tom asked, his voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. His eyes darted around, searching for any sign of danger or misdirection. Lily consulted the journal, her fingers tracing the faded ink of her mother's words. The journal was a relic, a connection to a past she barely understood but felt compelled to uncover. "There's a clearing," she murmured, her voice tinged with both hope and fear. The words in the journal seemed to guide her, pulling her towards a destiny she couldn't escape. An old well, a gathering point. The words echoed in her mind, a beacon in the darkness. She could almost see the clearing, feel the presence of the well, even before they arrived. A shiver ran down her spine. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees leaning in as if to listen to their every word. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Each step they took felt like a step back in time, the past and present merging in the twilight. As they pushed deeper into the forest, the light began to fade. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced and flickered like specters. Twisted branches reached out like grasping claws, and the shadows seemed to writhe and coil like living things. The forest was alive, a sentient being that watched and waited. Lily could feel the weight of the past pressing down on her, suffocating her. The air grew heavier, each breath a struggle, as if the forest itself was testing her resolve. The forest held its breath, waiting. Every rustle, every creak seemed amplified, the silence a living entity that wrapped around them. They stumbled into a clearing, the air thick with an unnatural stillness. The clearing was a stark contrast to the dense forest, an open space that felt both welcoming and foreboding. In the center stood an ancient well, its stone rim choked with vines. The well seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a relic of a time long past. The well was a gaping maw, dark and bottomless. It seemed to draw in the light, a void that promised secrets and danger in equal measure. Lily felt drawn to it, a magnetic pull that made her want to turn and run. Her heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat of fear and anticipation. This was the place her mother had warned her about, the place where the darkness resided. The journal's warnings echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. As Lily approached the well, a cold wind swept through the clearing, whipping her hair around her face. The wind carried whispers, voices from the past that seemed to call out to her. She heard a whisper, faint but distinct, carried on the breeze. "Beware the gathering point!" The word sent a chill down her spine, a warning she couldn't ignore. The voice was old, raspy, filled with a sorrow that chilled her to the bone. It was a voice from another time, a remnant of a past that refused to be forgotten. Lily spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but there was no one there. The forest was empty, yet it felt crowded with unseen presences. They were not alone in the forest. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, a constant pressure that made her skin crawl. Something was watching them, unseen eyes peering from the shadows. The forest was alive with hidden dangers, a place where the past and present collided. The curse of Ravenbrook was real, and it was closing in. The forest seemed to tighten around them, a living entity that would not let them go without a fight.